Peace, love, and psychopaths. Why can't we all get along? A wistful question many of us will have heard or uttered without really spending much time considering the answer. We cast our eyes to a utopian horizon where everyone is self-reflective, has made peace with their inner demons. In this world, we try to do as little harm to each other as possible and live in harmony with the land like fantasies we hold of our ancestral times. There are likely to be lots of reasons that humanity doesn't get along swimmingly all of the time, including competition for resources, racial and gender conflict, clashing ideologies, and different moral structures. There are also aspects of human nature such as greed and envy, which appear to erode our ability to cooperate consistently. Social scientists have studied behaviour to try and understand such things as why good people do bad things, and have constructed a wide range of theories. But there is perhaps a more fundamental reason we can't all get along, even if those of us who lived peaceful lives, aspiring to absolute harmony with everything else on this earth, we would still come undone remarkably quickly. And perhaps the answer can be found within the dark tetrad of human psychological traits. Scientists stay away from concepts like good and evil and leave that to philosophers and priests, but the dark tetrad is perhaps as close as they're willing to get. The dark tetrad are four psychological spectrum traits, meaning that we all have some measure within our personality makeup, just as we all display various levels of neuroticism and extroversion. The four traits in focus here are narcissism, psychopathy, Machiavellianism, and sadism. A combination of these traits sit at the heart of any villain of literature. They are the essence of what we consider when we think of evil. The Oxford Dictionary of Psychology defines narcissistic personality disorder as being someone who demonstrates a significantly inflated sense of oneself or one's opinions. They display boastfulness, enviousness, fantasies of unlimited success and power, exploitiveness, and also lack empathy. Psychopathy is more typically referred in the clinical setting as antisocial personality disorder and includes traits such as superficial charm, pathological lying, lack of remorse, and callousness. These are often coupled with a need for stimulation through the exploitation of others, a parasitic lifestyle, poor behavioral controls, impulsivity, and irresponsibility. Sadism, named after the Marquis de Sade, who was confined to an asylum for his literary works depicting extreme acts of sex and sexual violence. Sadism describes a tendency to extreme cruelty through the pain or humiliation of others. This is typically motivated by sexual arousal from such actions, although non-sexual desire is also believed to be a factor in some populations. Machiavellianism takes its name from the 16th century Italian political writer and philosopher Niccolò Machiavelli. It notes the manipulation of others to personal advantage, often to the point of exploiting the individual or group concerned. In terms of numbers, there are estimated to be between 80 and 250 million people who score highly in the respect to the traits, and perhaps up to 1.2 billion people on the moderate scale. That is a colossal number of people who care very little or not at all but for themselves and have little to no concern in taking from others or manipulating others for their own advantage. Against a global estimate of 8.2 billion people, that's a 1 in 8 chance of running into someone who will deliberately seek to take advantage of you given half a chance. Meditating, peace-loving hippies, beware. Looking specifically at psychopathy, people scoring highly in this trait are believed to represent about 1% of the general population, but can be found in as much as 20% of a prison population. Most of us don't realise we're encountering someone who might be a psychopath because of their ability to appear charming. They are also seldom the simple, bloodthirsty butchers that we find in pulp serial killer stories, and are often more subtle and selective in their targets, looking for people who are likely to be susceptible to their control. So, what can we do about it? Looking at the numbers, this paints a bleak picture, and it would be easy to see consolation in despair. But the numbers are also telling in another way. The vast majority of the global population, some 7 billion people, do not demonstrate high or moderate trait scores in the dark tetrad. Also, it is evident that humanity does cooperate far more than it does not. It's just that the non cooperation can be devastating, and certainly gets more clicks on social media than people coming together does. But this is a lesson against naivety and the temptation to approach the world with a utopian and idealistic mindset. We need to be able to recognize the capacity for exceptional darkness within the condition of humanity. One of the core aspects in the causing of trauma is the unpreparedness for the darkness of the situation we find ourselves in. We should look in the mirror and do self work, but we are reminded that some have no interest in the mirror and may not even know it exists. If we can confront the darkness in our own hearts through introspection and integration of our shadow, then we might be better prepared to face the potential of malevolence when we encounter it. This might help shield us from the trauma of a worst case situation and help us help those that we care most about. And this is what we'll be exploring at the next Mind Fit Community, 6 p.m. Thursday, 11th of September at Retro Cave Cafe, Ashley Road, Poole. Hope to see you there. Thanks for listening.